So there's a scene in episode 4 in Devs where a bunch of the developers are talking about the fact that the main building for the company that they're working at is right on a earthquake fault line, and they question why it was built there. And one of them says something to the effect of, wouldn't it be funny if the whole building just collapsed in on itself? And I sat there and I thought, yeah, that's never gonna happen. Anyway, this is my spoiler review of Devs episodes 4 and 5. I apologize I didn't do a separate video for episode 4, but I ran out of time and I felt it made more sense to do it this way at this point. So I intend to do individual videos for future episodes, but this week I'm just going to do a combined video. So I'm going to do a little bit different than usual and not try to do a holistic review of the episodes individually, but more just kind of mention the things that stood out to me. It was interesting because I think if I had done a review of episode 4, I would have said that the show wasn't doing a good enough job developing the characters. And I felt like that was because it was more interested in ideas and more interested in sci-fi concepts than it was in developing people. I really did not feel like I knew enough about Lily at that point. But this week with episode 5, they've kind of come back and kind of addressed that criticism I would have had. And they gave some more backstory on all the characters. They gave more backstory on Forrest. They let us see what happened with him and his daughter. And they showed us the backdrop of how Lily met Jamie. They showed us some of her history with her father. So it really, this episode to me accomplished quite a bit. It did a lot of work. Thankfully, Jamie is still alive. At the end of episode 4, I really thought that they had probably killed him off, but it seems Kenton decided to let him go with just breaking his fingers. Ow, that really looked painful. I just winced really bad. I know my wife wouldn't have been able to take it if she had been watching the episode with me. She would have just died. I want to say something that I think some of you might not agree with, but I feel like the show is having a hard time finding a balance between being hard sci-fi that appeals to people that might not be as interested in melodramatic plot lines or in drama and stuff. And I feel like it's having a hard time balancing out those elements with personal stories that you care about. In an ideal story, I feel like you can do both. But here, I feel like, one, the ideas all seem like things that I've seen before in other things. Now, they're done here with a greater degree of specificity, and they bring in a lot more science and incorporate a lot of stuff. A lot of the time, I'm sure what they're saying is like very accurate. I can't understand what they're saying. Thankfully, they dumb it down after they're done explaining it in a really granular way. They give a little bit more just like high level explanation. But to me, like, I brought up some stuff that happened in the last 2 episodes. You know, they had the death of Forrest's daughter, which it was a little bit stunning the way it happened. But to me, it didn't emotionally move me, and maybe I'm just cold-hearted, but I have watched other things this week that made me sob, so I just felt like there wasn't enough of a connection to Forrest as a character, perhaps, although I feel more connection to him than I feel perhaps to any other character on the show. They finally set up why Forrest is doing this, which is interesting. It's kind of a question of whether or not what happened to his family had to happen, which is something I've theorized might be the case, especially after someone commented on my last video a theory of why Forrest was trying to create this simulation. And it was a very good theory. It wasn't quite on the nose, but it was very, very close. And one of the things they brought up was the many worlds theory. And I could be getting this wrong, but I think what Forrest is arguing is that if the many worlds theory, if there's many possible realities, there's a reality where I clap my hands, there's a reality where I don't clap my hands, there's a reality where I make this video, there's a reality where I don't make this video. If that's true, then he's culpable for his daughter's death because it wasn't inevitable that it happened. There's worlds where it didn't happen, so he is responsible. But if it was inevitable if there's only one world, then he isn't culpable. I think that's what he's arguing. It got a little confusing because, as I said, I couldn't understand a lot of the discussions they had. But Katie essentially made the case, here, look, there's a world where this rat died and there's a world where this rat didn't die. So they've basically at this point proved the many worlds theory, and they showed it rather elegantly when they showed his daughter's accident happen, because as they showed the Forrest that we know going to the car to find, his dead daughter, we also see all the other possible situations that could have happened unfolding in the background. And I'm sure this was a very hard sequence to film. It's very well done. I was worried at the end of last week's episode when Lily got put away in a facility by Kenton. I felt that it was very, very likely that they were going to spend an entire episode with her trying to break out of a facility. And I was not on board for that, because that was not what this show was set up to be at all. But thankfully, they had her get rescued this week by Jamie, who I thought was dead last week. I really did. And, as I said, I'm glad he's not gone. I don't think he has been with us long enough, and I think the show needs more characters. I appreciated that he manned up and did the right thing, because I felt like for a little bit there it seemed like he was just gonna wuss out after Kenton broke his finger. Now, I grant you, I'm not sure I would have done the right thing after Kenton had to go at me. That guy is scary. I find him very, very frightening, and I hate him, to be honest, especially after his conversation with Forrest and Katie, where he basically told them, I'm not going to jail. I don't care what happens here. I'm not going to jail. I thought at first that he might be kind of like, one of those types of characters where he just views the mission as more important than anything else, and that gives him permission to be a psychopath. And that's becoming a little bit of a cliche at this point. So I was kind of glad that they didn't go that route, that they made him a straight up selfish prick. Like, he's like, I'm evil, I kill people, I do all sorts of terrible things, and I'm doing it because of my own personal reasons. It has nothing to do with the greater good. I'm not going to jail. Clearly, I only care about myself. So I appreciated that about Kenton. I appreciated that they weren't going that route. Now, I don't think he's terribly well developed yet, but the guy scares the heck out of me. I mean, I think he's a freaky dude. The car accident that happened in episode 4, I really enjoyed that sequence. I appreciated it because it was set up that I thought that Lily was just going to roll over and let Kenton take her away, and I felt like she was being pretty feeble up to that point, but then she took action and caused the car accident. I know that it's kind of nuts and it looks bad and it was really dangerous and it risks other people's lives, but I feel like she had to do something there. It was really well staged. It was intense. I appreciated that it felt like they shot it on an open highway, and that's the kind of action sequence I want to see, is where it's something that's just really intense but rooted in reality, something that you can imagine happening, and that's exactly what that action sequence was. So, final thoughts. I've enjoyed this show. I liked the last 2 episodes. I think it's well directed. Not as well directed as some other things that Alex Garland has done, but my main complaint so far is I just don't feel like they've done a great job developing the characters. And we're 5 episodes in, and it just feels like they're still setting up the concepts, and I feel like it would have been nice for them to set up the concepts quicker and just spend more time exploring the world. Now, I imagine there's going to be some really interesting and engaging moments in the next 2 episodes that may have me eating my words, but for now, I feel like I would have really liked to see them get to the point faster and maybe get to those exciting moments faster so that we could just kind of do more exploration of the world. So those are my thoughts, but what did you think? Are you enjoying the series so far? Do you feel like it's too sci-fi, not enough sci-fi? Do you feel like the character development is perfectly adequate? Am I being too harsh? Let me know in the comments, and if you're new to the channel and you like what I'm doing, please subscribe. That's Plot First's review of Devs, episodes 4 and 5.